The desert was wide and endless. The sky above burned with fading colors as the sun went down. Shadows stretched long across the dry sand. The wind carried dust that clung to the rider's face and clothes. He did not complain. He simply pulled his scarf tighter and guided his horse forward. The horse was tired, its steps slow and heavy. It was the last horse he had, the last friend left to him. For days he had been riding alone, across broken lands, across empty silence. He had passed ruins of old towns, long dead and forgotten. He had passed dry rivers where no water remained, and still he pressed on, because stopping meant death and he was not ready to die. His name was Marcus, but in this wasteland, names did not matter. There was no one to hear them, no one to call them. What mattered was strength. What mattered was holding on for one more mile, one more hour. So Marcus kept moving, his mind filled with the simple rhythm of hoofbeats. Step after step, the sound was his only companion. Night was coming. The first stars began to appear, cold and sharp in the darkening sky. Marcus felt the chill creep into his bones. The desert was cruel like that, burning heat in the day, frozen air at night. He pulled his coat tighter, but it did little. He was already weak, his food almost gone, his water almost empty. The horse gave a soft, tired cry as if asking him to stop, but Marcus only whispered gently, "Just a little more, old friend." He thought of home, though home was far away. He thought of green fields he would never see again. He thought of voices he would never hear again. Loneliness pressed heavy on him, but he carried it like a weight he had long accepted. His life now was only the road, the desert, and the hope of survival. As the night grew deeper, the desert grew quieter. Only the wind moved, hissing softly over the sand. Marcus listened carefully, as he always did. In lands like this, silence was never perfect. Something always lurked in the dark, sometimes bandits, sometimes beasts, and sometimes things he could not explain. Stories whispered of shadows that watched from a distance, of lights that moved without sound. But Marcus had never seen them, or perhaps he had, but refused to believe. Still, tonight felt strange. The air carried a weight, as if holding a secret. The horse raised its head suddenly, ears turning. Marcus stopped and held his breath. Far away, he thought he heard a cry, faint and broken. Not the cry of an animal, not the call of a bird. It was something else, something softer, something filled with pain. His heart beat faster. In this wasteland, cries in the night could be traps. But something inside him pushed him forward. He urged the horse toward the sound. Step by step they moved, slow but steady. The wind grew quiet, the stars brighter. The world seemed to hold its breath. At last, he reached the source. In the sand, half covered, lay a figure, small, fragile, and glowing faintly under the starlight. Marcus froze, staring in disbelief. It was not human. Its skin shimmered with strange patterns, like light running across water. Its hair glowed softly, silver under the moon, and its body shook with weak breaths. It was a girl, young, wounded, bleeding from deep marks across her side. Marcus felt his throat go dry. He had heard tales, whispers of beings not of this world. Some said they were enemies, some said they were gods, but never had he seen one with his own eyes. And now here she was, lying before him in the sand, broken and dying. For a long moment he did not move. Fear held him. If she was real, then what else was real? If she was here, then what had chased her? His hand went to the small blade at his belt, but he did not draw it, because she was no threat. She was only struggling to live. The horse stood silently beside him, as if it too understood. Marcus slowly climbed down, his legs heavy, his body weak. He took a step closer, the sand crunching softly beneath his boots. The girl's eyes opened, glowing faintly like dying stars. She looked at him with fear, with confusion, with a strange sorrow. Her lips moved, but no sound came. Marcus knelt beside her, unsure of what to do. He had so little to give, barely enough to keep himself alive, and yet he could not turn away. The desert stretched around them, endless and cold. The stars watched in silence, and Marcus, the lonely rider, realized that his journey had just changed forever. The girl's breath was shallow, each rise of her chest weaker than the last. Marcus watched her, torn between fear and pity. Her skin glowed faintly, as if tiny rivers of light ran beneath it. The glow flickered, dimming, brightening, like a flame fighting against wind. He crouched closer, his hand trembling. Never in his life had he seen something like her. She was not of his world, that much was clear, and yet she looked fragile, almost human in her suffering. Marcus whispered softly, though he knew she might not understand. "Stay awake. Don't close your eyes." His voice cracked with exhaustion, with the weight of days spent alone. The alien girl's eyes fluttered open, and for a moment they locked onto his. Her gaze carried something he could not name, fear, trust, and a silent plea all at once. He reached into his bag, pulling out a strip of cloth. He pressed it gently against the wound at her side. She flinched, but did not resist. Her blood was strange, darker than human blood, yet glowing faintly. The cloth soaked quickly, heat rising from it as if it held fire within. Marcus's hands shook, but he kept pressing. He had nothing else, no medicine, no water to clean the wound, only will, only the stubborn heart that refused to let her die. The horse stood nearby, ears twitching at every sound. It sensed the unease, the danger carried. In the night, Marcus knew they should not stay here long. The desert hid many eyes, and the wounded were easy prey. But how could he move her? She was too weak to walk, and he had only one horse left. The choice hit him like a knife. The horse was his life. Without it, he would not see another sunrise. But looking at her, broken and glowing faintly in the starlight, he felt the pull of something greater, something that whispered deep inside. This moment will decide who you are. Her lips parted, and this time a sound came out, a soft whisper, strange, musical, like a language made of wind and water. Marcus did not understand the words, but he understood the feeling. She was asking for help. Her eyes burned with silent tears, glowing brighter with pain, and Marcus knew the truth. If he left her, she would die before dawn. He turned to the horse, his faithful companion. Its dark eyes met his, tired but loyal. Marcus placed a hand on its neck, whispering softly, "I'm sorry, old friend." The horse breathed out a heavy sigh, as if it understood what he was about to do. With slow hands, Marcus lifted the girl. She was lighter than he expected, fragile like glass. Her body trembled as he placed her carefully on the horse's back. She clung weakly to the saddle, her glowing fingers gripping the leather. Marcus steadied her, whispering again, "Hold on, don't fall, just hold on." The horse shifted under the weight, uneasy, but it carried her, step by step, into the desert night. Marcus walked beside them, his boots sinking into the sand. Every step burned his legs, every breath tore at his lungs, but he did not stop. The girl's faint glow lit their path, a ghostly lantern in the dark. Hours passed, the stars wheeled overhead, cold and endless. The desert whispered with hidden voices. Marcus felt eyes on them, shapes moving just beyond the reach of starlight, but nothing happy. Roached, it was as if the girl's glow kept them safe, or perhaps it warned others away. At times, Marcus thought he heard whispers, not from the wind, but from her. Words too soft to catch, yet filled with meaning, a language of sorrow and gratitude. He could not understand, but his heart did, and with each whisper, he felt less alone. Finally, his legs gave way. He fell to his knees in the sand, gasping for air. The horse stopped, lowering its head, exhausted. The girl swayed in the saddle, nearly falling. Marcus forced himself up, steadying her once more. He had nothing left, no strength, no food, no water. And yet he gave, again and again. The night grew colder. Frost began to form on the edges of the sand, glittering under the stars. Marcus pulled his coat tighter, shivering. The girl looked down at him, her glowing eyes filled with something new, not just pain, but recognition. As if she saw in him a spirit she understood, she reached out a trembling hand, touching his shoulder. The glow spread faintly into his skin, warm, comforting. For a brief moment, he felt strength return, as if her touch shared a fragment of her light. Marcus met her eyes, and for the first time he felt no fear. She was not a monster, not a threat. She was just a wounded stranger in need, and he, a lonely rider with nothing left but his heart, had chosen to give. The desert stretched before them, wide and unforgiving. But in that silent moment, man and alien, rider and stranger, became bound by something greater than survival, by a choice that would echo far beyond the sands of the night. The desert night stretched long and merciless. Marcus walked beside the horse, each step heavier than the last, his boots dragged in the sand, his breath sharp in the cold air. The alien girl swayed weakly on the saddle, her glowing hands clutching the reins. Every few minutes, Marcus would glance at her, making sure she did not fall. Her glow dimmed, then returned, like a lantern flickering in the wind. He knew she was close to the edge, close to slipping into the dark forever. The horse groaned, tired, its steps slowing. Marcus placed a hand on its neck, whispering encouragement. "You've carried us far, old friend. Just a little more." But he knew the truth. The horse was starving, weak, and now burdened with weight it was never meant to carry. Marcus could see the ribs pressing through its skin. Its breath came in sharp bursts, clouds of frost under the cold moonlight. He felt guilt heavy in his chest. The horse had given him everything, and now it gave even more, and Marcus was asking too much. The girl stirred, her eyes half opening. She whispered something in her strange musical voice. The sound was soft, fragile, yet it carried weight. Marcus could not understand the words, but he knew she was speaking to him, perhaps thanking him, perhaps warning him. He only shook his head and forced a smile. "Don't speak, save your strength," he said quietly, though his own strength was fading too. The wind rose, carrying whispers across the sand. Marcus stopped, listening. Shapes moved far away, shifting shadows. Eyes glinted faintly in the dark, watching, waiting. The desert was never empty. It always waited for weakness, always hunted those who slowed. Marcus tightened his grip on his small blade, but he knew it was useless against the unseen. The only light between him and the dark was the faint glow of the girl, and her glow was fading fast. Hours passed. Marcus's legs finally gave way, and he stumbled. The horse stopped, too weak to continue. Marcus knelt in the sand, his chest burning, his lips cracked and dry. He stared at the girl. She looked down at him with eyes that were too ancient, too deep for her fragile body. Her lips moved again, forming words he could not know, but her hand lifted, trembling, and pointed at the horse. Her meaning was clear. She wanted him to ride. She wanted him to survive. Marcus shook his head, tears burning his tired eyes. "No, it's for you, not for me," he whispered. He stood slowly, his hands resting on the saddle, and then with a heavy heart, he made his choice. He untied the reins. He pressed the horse's side, urging it forward with her on its back. The horse hesitated, looking back at him confused. Marcus slapped its flank gently, whispering, "Go, take her, keep her alive." The horse stepped forward, then again, carrying the girl into the night. Marcus watched them go, his chest tightening. He had given his last gift, the only thing left between him and death, and he had given it away without hesitation. The silence pressed heavy around him. The desert seemed larger now, colder, darker. Marcus stood alone, his body trembling with exhaustion. He had no horse, no food, no water, nothing but his will, and even that felt as fragile as sand in the wind. He sank to his knees, the cold bit deep, stealing his warmth. He lay back on the sand, staring at the endless sky. Stars burned above him, ancient and uncaring. He thought of home again, of laughter long gone, of faces he would never see. But there was no bitterness in his heart, only a quiet peace. He had given his last gift to a stranger, and somehow that felt enough. The night stretched on. Marcus closed his eyes, drifting between sleep and waking. Dreams came, strange and heavy. He saw the girl's glowing eyes, brighter now. He saw shapes in the distance, tall figures moving without sound. He saw his horse, carrying her farther, faster, guided by unseen hands, and he felt a whisper inside his mind, soft and foreign, not in words but in meaning. "You will not be forgotten." He woke suddenly, gasping. The stars above had shifted, dawn creeping at the horizon. The world was painted in pale blue and silver. The cold had numbed his body, but his mind was clear. He pushed himself up, legs shaking. He was alive, though he did not know why. The desert was still, too still, and then he noticed it. Footprints, not his own, leading across the sand, soft, delicate, inhuman, glowing. Faintly in the early light, Marcus followed them with his eyes. They stretched far into the horizon, where the first edge of the sun rose, and for the first time, he felt a strange hope, as if his gift had opened a door to something larger than himself. He fell back into the sand, smiling faintly despite the pain. The horse was gone, the girl was gone, but his choice remained, a gift freely given, a sacrifice made not for reward, but because it was the human thing to do. And deep inside, Marcus felt the truth. The story was not ending here. It was only beginning. The desert was silent, but not the silence of peace. It was the silence of something waiting, something unseen. Marcus lay on the sand, the cold biting into his bones. His horse was gone, carrying the wounded alien girl into the dark, and Marcus was left behind with nothing but his breath and his will. The night stretched on, longer than any night he had ever known. Every second felt heavy, each minute endless. The stars burned bright above, cruel and distant. They watched him like eyes, cold and unfeeling. Marcus pulled his coat tight around him, but the cold still crept in. His fingers stiffened, his lips cracked, his body shivered without mercy. He closed his eyes for a moment, trying to rest, but the silence broke with whispers, not whispers of wind, but whispers inside his mind. Faint voices, strange and layered. He could not understand the words, yet he felt them. They pressed against his thoughts, testing, questioning. Marcus clenched his jaw, forcing the whispers away. He told himself it was only the cold, only his mind breaking from exhaustion. But deep inside, he knew it was more. The desert was never empty. Something moved out there, just beyond the reach of starlight. Marcus felt it, shadows shifting, forms bending. Every time he turned his head, the sand seemed to ripple, shapes appeared and vanished in the corner of his vision. His blade felt small in his hand, useless against the vastness of the night, but he kept it close, because it was all he had left. Time lost meaning. He did not know if hours passed or only moments. His body grew heavy, begging for sleep, yet sleep felt dangerous. In the dark, he feared he would not wake again. He forced his eyes open, again and again, staring at the stars. His breath came ragged, but he held on. Then faintly, he heard it. Hoofbeats, far away, echoing across the sand. For a moment his heart leapt. He thought the horse had returned, carrying the girl back to him. He pushed himself up, his eyes straining against the horizon. But there was nothing, only empty sand stretching into infinity. The sound faded, leaving him hollow. Perhaps it was only memory, perhaps only his mind playing tricks. He laughed weakly, though the sound carried no joy. Alone again, always alone, he whispered to the stars. His voice cracked, carried away by the wind. But then he remembered her eyes, those glowing eyes that had looked at him with something beyond words, and he realized he was not truly alone. Because she carried a piece of him now, his sacrifice rode with her into the unknown. The thought gave him strength, not much, but enough to lift himself from the sand. He stumbled forward step by step. Each movement was pain, each breath a battle. But he walked, because to lie down meant the desert would claim him forever. And Marcus was not ready to be forgotten. The night grew stranger. Lights flickered on the horizon, small and shifting. At first, he thought they were stars low to the ground. But they moved, dancing like lanterns in the dark, sometimes red, sometimes blue. Sometimes they blinked out, only to appear closer than before. Marcus froze, his heart racing. He had heard stories of ghost lights, luring travelers to their deaths, but he had never believed them, until now. The lights moved in silence, circling. He gripped his blade tighter, though he knew it would do nothing. The lights pulsed once, twice, and then faded into the dark. The silence returned. Heavier than before, Marcus stumbled onward. The desert wanted him weak, wanted him to fall, but still he walked. Hours crawled by. The moon crossed the sky, pale and distant. His body screamed for rest. His mind begged for mercy. But Marcus kept moving. One step, then another. He whispered to himself with every breath, "Keep going, keep going, keep going." And then, the whispers returned, not from the wind this time, not from his own mind, but from the sand itself, voices rising like a chorus, soft and chilling. He could not understand the words, but they carried meaning. They spoke of watching, of waiting, of judgment. Marcus dropped to his knees, clutching his head. The voices pressed into him, pulling at his thoughts. Memories flooded back, faces of the past, losses he had buried. He saw the girl again, glowing and broken. He saw the moment he gave her the horse, and he felt the voices around him fall silent, as if watching that memory, as if weighing his soul. The silence that followed was complete. The desert held its breath. Marcus lay trembling, but he did not break. He whispered into the dark, his voice steady despite the fear. "She lives. That is enough." The voices did not return. The lights did not come back. The night seemed to ease, the stars softened, and for the first time Marcus felt warmth instead of cold. It was not the warmth of fire, but of something unseen, as if the desert itself had accepted his choice. At last his body gave way. He sank to the sand, closing his eyes. He thought of the girl riding into the unknown. He thought of his horse carrying her to safety, and he thought of dawn, the hope that somewhere beyond the horizon the sun would rise again. The night had been long, cruel, and full of shadows, but Marcus had endured, and the desert, silent as ever, held at him in its endless arms. The first light of dawn touched the horizon. It painted the desert in pale gold, chasing away the shadows of the long night. Marcus opened his eyes slowly. His body heavy, his throat dry. The cold still clung to him, but he felt the air warming. He was alive, though he did not understand why. The desert stretched silent around him, endless and empty. His horse was gone. The girl was gone. Only footprints remained, faint and glowing where she had passed. Marcus sat up, every muscle aching. He followed the glowing tracks with his eyes. They stretched toward the rising sun, fading into the distance. Then he felt it, a change in the air. The desert grew still, too still. Even the wind stopped moving. The silence pressed down heavy, unnatural. Marcus's heart quickened. Something was coming. At first he thought it was a mirage. Figures appeared at the edge of the horizon, tall and graceful. They moved without sound, their steps leaving faint trails of light on the sand. As the sun rose higher, he saw them clearly, not one, but many. A line of figures walking in silence, their eyes glowing faintly in the dawn. They were like the girl, yet different, older, stronger, their presence heavy with power. Their skin shimmered with shifting colors, like water under the morning light. Their hair flowed like silver, untouched by the wind. They carried no weapons, yet their very presence felt dangerous, like the calm before a storm. Marcus froze, unsure whether to run or to kneel. But his body had no strength left to do either. He could only watch as they approached. His blade rested at his side, useless. He knew he could not fight them. If they wished him gone, he would vanish like dust in the wind. The figures stopped a few steps away. They stood in a half-circle around him, silent and watchful. Their eyes glowed brighter as they studied him. Marcus swallowed hard, his breath shallow. The silence was unbearable. It was not the silence of strangers. It was the silence of judgment. Finally, one of them stepped forward. She was tall, lighter than the rest, her glow stronger. Her eyes burned with a silver light that cut through him. She did not speak, yet Marcus heard her voice inside his mind, soft but sharp. "You gave your last gift." Marcus's heart pounded. He tried to speak, but his lips trembled. His voice came weak, rough from thirst. "She would have died. I could not leave her." The figure tilted her head slightly as if weighing his words. The others remained still, their eyes never leaving him. The leader reached out her hand. She touched the sand, and light spread from her fingers. The ground glowed, shifting like water. Marcus stared, bewildered. In the glow, he saw images. His horse carrying the girl, the moment he let them go. The figures were showing him his own memory, but through their eyes, it was more than memory. It was a story, a measure of his spirit. The silence deepened. Marcus felt small beneath their gaze. His sacrifice, simple to him, seemed larger to them. Finally, the leader lifted her eyes to the sky, then back to him. Again, her voice echoed in his mind. "You are different." The others moved closer, their steps soft, their eyes unblinking. Marcus tensed, unsure if this was blessing or doom. The leader extended her hand. Her palm glowed with soft light. Marcus hesitated, fear burning inside him. But then he remembered the girl's touch, the warmth she had shared, and slowly he placed his hand in hers. The light spread into him. Warmth rushed through his body, chasing away the cold. His wounds eased, his thirst faded. Strength returned to his weary bones. Marcus gasped, tears filling his eyes. It was like standing in sunlight after years of darkness. The leader released his hand, stepping back, her glowing eyes softened. "You gave life when you had none to spare," she whispered inside his mind. "Few among your kind would have done the same." The circle of figures bowed their heads, silent but heavy with meaning. Marcus did not understand their customs, but he knew this was no threat. This was honor. He fell to his knees, his head lowered. "I had nothing else, but it was the right thing," he whispered. His words carried into the still air. The figures stood silent, their glow brightening with the rising sun. They did not answer. They did not need to. For Marcus understood. They had seen him. They had judged him, and in their silence he had been accepted. The desert wind returned at last, soft and warm. It carried away the weight of the long night. The figures turned together, their movements fluid. They began to walk toward the horizon, their steps leaving glowing trails that slowly faded. The leader paused once, looking back at him. Her glowing eyes lingered on him for a long moment. Then she too turned away. Marcus remained kneeling in the sand, his heart pounding. The sun rose higher, painting the desert in gold. He knew his life had changed. He had given his last gift, and in return, he had been given something unseen. A place in their silence, a place in their memory. And as the alien sisters vanished into the distance, Marcus whispered softly to himself, "The silent ones. They were never strangers." The sun rose higher over the desert. Its warmth spread across the sand, painting the world in gold. Marcus stood slowly, his legs still weak, but strength was returning. The alien sisters had walked ahead, their glowing forms drifting like ghosts in daylight. Marcus hesitated, then followed. Each step left a mark in the sand, a trail that seemed small compared to theirs. The desert felt different now, not empty, not cruel, but alive, as if it carried unseen watchers. The silence was still heavy, yet it was no longer hostile. It was the silence of something ancient, something aware. The sisters did not speak, not with mouths, but Marcus felt their thoughts pressing faintly into his own, flashes of images, feelings, questions he could not fully understand. Yet he felt their meaning. They were searching him, peeling back the layers of his heart. At last, they stopped. They stood in a circle again, the leader stepping forward. Her silver eyes glowed brighter in the full light of morning. Marcus braced himself, unsure if this would be his end. Then her voice filled his mind, calm and steady. "You gave when nothing remained. Why?" The question struck deep. Marcus lowered his gaze. His lips trembled, but he spoke honestly. "She was dying, and I could not leave her. The horse was all I had, but life is worth more than survival. If it was my last gift, then so be it. Better to give than to keep for myself." The leader studied him in silence. Her eyes shimmered with unreadable emotion. Then she raised her hand, and the desert itself seemed to bend. The air shimmered, and visions appeared around Marcus. Not illusions, but memories. His own life reflected back to him. He saw himself as a boy, running through green fields. He saw battles fought, losses endured. He saw nights alone by the fire and days filled with hunger. He saw faces of those he had once loved, all gone now but never forgotten. The vision swirled, then shifted, and he saw the girl. The moment he found her in the sand, the moment he gave her the horse, every heartbeat, every choice, it was all there, laid bare before the silent sisters. Marcus gasped, his chest tight. The visions faded, leaving only the glowing figures. The leader stepped closer. "You chose sacrifice over fear," her voice whispered inside him. "This is rare among your kind." Her words stung, but he did not deny them. Humans were often selfish, desperate to hold what little they had. Marcus had seen it with his own eyes, but in that moment with the girl he had felt no choice. It was simply right. He lifted his head, his voice steady despite the weight of her gaze. "If kindness is rare, though, and let it be rarer still, even one act matters, even if no one remembers." The silence that followed was deep. The sisters exchanged glances, their eyes glowing brighter. Then the leader reached toward him again. Her hand touched his chest, just above his heart. Warmth spread through him, not just in his body, but in his soul. Visions filled him once more, but these were not his own. He saw a vast city of light, towers that shimmered like crystal. He saw skies filled with silver ships, silent and graceful. He saw the sisters as they truly were, not wanderers in the desert, but guardians, watchers of many worlds, and he saw their law, their ancient truth. They tested those they encountered. They weighed them not by strength but by sacrifice, and in Marcus they had found what they sought. The vision ended, leaving him trembling. The leader's voice filled his mind again. "You are human, fragile and short-lived, but in you burns something more. You gave without promise, you gave without knowing, you gave because it was your nature." Marcus's throat tightened. Tears filled his eyes, though he tried to hide them. He had always been a wanderer, a survivor. Yet here, among beings far greater than him, his simple act meant more than he ever imagined. The leader stepped back, raising her hand. The other sisters lowered their heads. The desert shimmered once more, and Marcus felt a surge of warmth inside him, not healing, not strength of body, but strength of spirit, as if they had marked him, as if he was no longer alone in the vastness of the world. The leader's eyes softened. "When dawn comes again, you will walk alone. But know this, your gift is not forgotten. Where you walk, we walk. Where you fall, we will rise. Your name will carry beyond the sand, beyond your world." Marcus fell to his knees, overwhelmed. His chest ached, not with pain, but with meaning. He had been a lonely rider, a forgotten man wandering the wasteland, but now he was something else, a part of their silence, a part of their story. The sisters turned, their free. Mrs. glowing brighter under the sun. They began to walk away, leaving trails of light that slowly faded. Marcus watched them, his heart heavy and full. He knew they would not return, but he knew also that their promise was true. He would never again be unseen. The desert wind rose once more, carrying warmth instead of cold. Marcus stood tall, his legs steady. The long night was behind him. The revelation had come. And though the road ahead was still uncertain, he was no longer afraid. The sun climbed higher in the sky. The desert shimmered with heat, as if the sands themselves burned with hidden fire. Marcus stood alone now, the sisters gone, their glowing trails fading into the endless horizon. Silence returned, but it was not the same silence as before. It was lighter, warmer, filled with the echo of something greater. He touched his chest where the leader's hand had rested. The warmth was still there, faint but steady. It was not the heat of the sun, nor the strength of his body. It was something deeper, a light carried within. He knew they had left him with more than visions. They had left him with a bond, unseen but unbreakable. Marcus walked, step by step. His body was still tired, his lips still cracked, but his spirit was different. The desert no longer felt like an enemy. The wind that once hissed cold now brushed against him like an ally. The sky above seemed wider, brighter, and though he was alone, he no longer felt lonely. He thought of the alien girl, her faint glow, her trembling hands, her eyes filled with pain and sorrow. He thought of the horse, faithful and strong, carrying her into the night. Perhaps they had reached her people before dawn. Perhaps his last gift had saved more than just one life. Perhaps it had opened a door he could not yet see. As he walked, he noticed something new. Shadows moved on the edge of the horizon, not threatening, no. Not hostile but watchful, silent. The sisters were gone, yet he felt their presence. They were not finished with him. They were only unseen. Days passed, though Marcus did not count them. He found water, hidden beneath stone. He found food, scarce but enough to live. Each time he felt despair rising, a warmth would return in his chest, and with it, the strength to take another step. It was as if the bond they left him was guiding his path. At night, when the stars filled the sky, he would hear faint whispers, soft and melodic, not like the cruel voices of the long night, but gentle, like songs sung across the wind. He could not understand the words, but he knew the meaning. You are not forgotten. Sometimes he dreamed. In those dreams, he saw the alien girl standing tall, her wounds healed, her eyes brighter, her glow strong. Around her stood the sisters, watching in silence. And always, she looked toward him, her lips forming a single word he could not hear, but the feeling reached him still. It was gratitude, deep and eternal. The desert gave way to rocky cliffs. Marcus climbed slowly, his hands scraped, his legs aching, but when he reached the top, he stopped in awe. Before him stretched a valley unlike anything he had seen, green, alive, shimmering with water and trees, a hidden place untouched by the wasteland. For a moment he thought it was another vision, another trick of the mind, but the wind carried scents of flowers, the sound of running streams. It was real. It was life. Marcus fell to his knees, tears filling his eyes. He laughed, weak but true. His journey had brought him here, perhaps by chance, perhaps by fate, or perhaps it was the gift of those who walked in silence. He entered the valley, drinking deeply from the stream. The water burned with sweetness, filling him with strength. He ate fruit from the trees, his body shaking with relief. For the first time in years, he felt whole. But even in this paradise, he knew the truth. This was not the end of his journey. This was only another beginning. Marcus built a small fire as the sun sank. He sat by the flames, staring at the stars, and he spoke aloud, though no one was near. I don't know if you can hear me, but thank you. I will carry this light. I will not waste the gift. The wind rose gently, swirling the flames, and in that moment, Marcus felt it again. The presence of the sisters, the memory of their silent judgment, and faintly, just faintly, the warmth of unseen eyes watching him with care. Word of his act would not reach the towns. No human would know the story of the lonely rider. But somewhere beyond the stars, among beings greater than his kind, his name would be remembered. Not as a warrior, not as a conqueror, but as a man who gave when he had nothing. A man who chose kindness when survival said otherwise. The desert had tested him, the silence had judged him. And in the end, the legacy of one human heart had touched a world not his own. Marcus leaned back, closing his eyes. The fire crackled softly, the valley alive with gentle sounds. For the first time in many years he felt peace. And though tomorrow would bring new trials, new roads, new battles, he was no longer afraid, for he knew now without doubt that one act of sacrifice could echo forever.